Hello and welcome back to another lore video. This time it's going to be Ahn'qiraj, and more specifically the Temple of Ahn'qiraj, or Ahn'qiraj I suppose it's really pronounced. And this is a very cool instance. It's got great lore to it. And yeah, I'm going to start off the lore, then I'm going to move on to the bosses. One or two of them do require a little bit of strategy if you're maybe lower geared. And then finally I'll talk about the loot and the rep that you can get. So, lore. Well, this place starts off, as always, with the Titans and the Old Gods. The Old Gods created a race called the Aqir. Now, about 16,000 years ago, their kingdom was split with this giant war of attrition with the Trolls. And this is actually where the Mantid went south to Pandaria. I'm sure you're acquainted with them. The Qiraj went to Scythalus, and the Nyrubians went... Is it Scythalus or Silithus? I'm going to say Silithus, because that's not an STI. And then the Nyrubians went to Northrend. Now, of course, the Shattering hadn't happened at this point, so these places were really just all part of the one large continent of Kalmandor. Now, when they were in Silithus, they named the place Ahn'qiraj, and they spent their time creating an army. Now, the next major thing that happened was the War of the Shifting Sands, which was many thousands of years ago. In that, the Qiraj tried to defeat the local Night Elves. Now, the Elves went to the Bronze Dragonflight, who eventually, after initially refusing them, did agree to help them. They contained the Qiraj in their city via a magical barrier called the Scarab Wall. Now, the dragons gave Fandral Staghelm, who was the leader of the Night Elves and would eventually turn evil and be a boss in the Firelands in Cataclysm, they gave him a scepter called the Scepter of the Shifting Sands, and they said that if they ever needed to go through the barrier, they need only strike the gong, but it would unleash the entire city. Now let's move on to the times of World of Warcraft. Cthun has awoken, and he is reinvigorating the Qiraj Empire, planning to launch an attack that will pretty much wipe out the whole world. That is his plan. Now, they were actually beginning to find out a way to break through the wall, and if they were to break through the wall without us, the players and factions and stuff being ready for them, then, well, we kind of be screwed. So, what we needed to do was get in there and kill them off before they had made all of their preparations. Now, this meant getting through the Scarab Wall, which had been made to contain them. Now, conveniently, the Scepter of the Shifting Sands had been lost to time, and thus started the Gates of Ahn'qiraj event. This is, to my knowledge, one of the largest world events that's ever happened in the game, and I really wish I was there to see it. So guilds did a number of extremely long and hard quests to remake the Scepter. Now, that was only one part of the battle, to actually prepare players, and more the armies of the factions to deal with this. The players had to fulfill work orders. This involved getting many, many thousands of stacks of mats and a multitude of just different things to hand in. So once everyone was ready for the war, for this massive war, and it was actually massive to the point where some servers struggled to stay online because there were so many people in Silithus. So what happened is the gates were opened, and General Rajax, along with a massive army, poured through the gates. And overall, it took masses of players to defeat them. Multiple raiding guilds, everyone who was the best in the server was there. And after this, Ahn'qiraj 20, also known as the Fallen Kingdom, I think, was opened. And then the main raid, the Temple of Ahn'qiraj, or AQ40 as it's more commonly known as, were open for business. Now, as for AQ40, this was built in a time before recorded history, and it is both a monument to the unspeakable gods, and a massive breeding ground for the Qiraj army. Now, let's get on to the place itself. So, boss number 1. Prophet Skyrim, or Skiram, or something like that. So this guy was actually a prophet of Cthulhu, and is the writer of the Prophecy of Cthun. Lovely guy. Now, as for killing him, this guy used to be a little bit problematic. What he would do is he would MC people with pets. Personally, I didn't see that happen. And he would also interrupt casting. Now, he's actually quite easy if you're level 90. If you're 85 or something, then it may take a little bit longer to kill him, but you should be fine. Basically, what you want to do is blast him down with instants. Now, he'll keep on splitting into other copies of himself, which is a pain in the arse, but it's not really a problem. Just keep on killing whatever you see, and you should be fine. The next boss is the Silithid Royalty. Now, the interesting thing about these guys is they are actually the game's first elite hard mode encounter. You could kill them in a different order, which would make it much harder and gain you some more loot. So if you want the extra loot, then you just want to kill Lord Kree last. Hunters can apparently actually tame these guys, though I didn't try it myself. They're a bit ugly, I don't really want them crowding up my stable. Next we have Battleguard Saruta, or something like that. Sartura, and she is apparently the leader of the Qiraj Battle Guards and the second boss of the temple, or second mandatory boss, and is a very easy kill, just nuke her down. Next we have Frankris the Unyielding. He's a big bug who's easy to kill. And after this we have Vasidius. Now this guy's actually different. He's an evil slime, and to kill him you need to take him to 1 HP and then freeze him with a frost spell. So whenever he's hit by a frost spell he'll be frozen for 30 seconds, in which you have to hit him 30 times. Now this includes, say, a frost enchanted weapon like Elemental Force. After he is frozen for 30 seconds you need to hit him 30 times. And for hunters, as an example, the Frost Chimera Pet does the trick, although I didn't have it on me at the time. Next there's Princess Huran or something like that, another free kill, nice and easy. And then we have the Twin Emperors. These guys actually caused soloers a bit of trouble for some time, but now that our DPS is very high, it should be dead easy. So this is one of the harder fights here, and they have a shared health pool. The two bosses here are quite different. The melee one is immune to magic damage, and the spellcaster one is immune to physical damage. And if they get 60 yards, like, together, and if they're within the 60 yards of each other, they heal for 30,000 a second. At level 90, this should be fine. You just want to nuke down the correct one quickly. So if you are a mage, you want to kill the magic one. Say if you're a hunter or a warrior, you want to kill the melee one. Even with the 30k heal per second, you will be able to DPS them just fine. You just need to make sure that you're killing the correct one. Next we have Oro. He is apparently a giant sandworm who is of legendary power and was created by the old god Cthun to make a mockery of life. And to that we say nuke nuke nuke, and he dies. Next up we have C'thun, the final boss and the first old god that was available in the game. Now to kill him you must take the eye, who was the initial boss, to 0 health. And then after this his tentacles will appear, you want to kill them, then you're ported into a stomach, in which you also want to kill the tentacles, then you go out and just finally kill him. It's funny looking through all these guys. The bosses really were a lot more mechanically simple back in the day. A lot of people say WoW's been horrifically dumbed down. I don't think so. I think players have just gotten better, and they've had to make more interesting mechanics around that. So this actually isn't the last we see of good old C'thun. He eventually is found to be behind Cho'Gall in Cataclysm, and who knows what's going on in AQ at the minute, because everything that I've just covered is something that happened in terms of game lore 5 or 6 years ago. Maybe it's even more than 5 or 6, could even be 10, whatever. A long time ago. And that's really it for the place itself. Now let's talk about the loot and the rep. Well, in terms of loot, there's a ton of it, and I'd recommend getting Atlas loot if you want to take a look at every little bit, but I'll just go through some of my highlights. So first of all, there's tier 2.5 tokens off the bosses, which will give you a 5 set for the 9 original classes in the game. I'm not really a fan of most of this, like, tier, but I'll show them all up on the screen anyway. Now, for actual standout individual pieces of loot, there was only really 2 that I thought were interesting. There was Kalmandora's Revenge, which is a giant sword, and Death's Sting, which is a dagger. And that's really it for the loot. Honestly, I think that perhaps some of the more insectoid-looking items in here could go quite well with some sort of manted transmog set, but other than that, I don't really think it's the most interesting thing. Next, let's talk about rep. So you'll get rep with the Brood of Nozdormu and the Senuran Circle. Now, in general, you'll also get a whole bunch of hand-in items like scarabs and idols. You want to get to at least, I think, full friendly with these guys before you hand in any of this stuff. Because at least with, I think it's, I know it's definitely with the Brood, I'm not too sure about the Senuran Circle, but at least with the Brood, when you hit friendly, you will no longer get any rep from the trash, so you just want to kill as much trash as you can, then start handing things in. Of course, for both factions, you'll get plenty of rep for killing the bosses themselves. Still, it will take you quite a while to grind out that rep. At least with AQ40, with the idols and stuff, their drops are designed for 40 people, so as one player you can just take it all, and it shouldn't be too horrifically bad to get all the rep up. But that is it for this video. I think AQ40 was really cool, and I remember going back to it. I think it was either late BC or early Cataclysm. Maybe it was medium Cataclysm. Actually, yes, it was I'm not sure. It was definitely in the time when achievements were a big thing. They were kind of new. So yeah, it would have been Cataclysm, and everyone was going to all the old raids, and I just remember going here and chatting to this guy who was a mount collector, and I probably should say for loot, you also get the Ahn'qiraj battle tanks. They're only usable in AQ, and you'll see me using it in the video, but this guy was like a mount collector, and he got his Dragonhawk, or something like that. He got one of his special mounts for getting a lot of mounts in AQ, which was pretty cool for him. But anyway, I think it's a really fun instance. I think it's got a great tone, a great feeling. And yeah, I really like it. Anyway, that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. And with all that, I'll see you next time.